Hello, welcome to a new video. Today I am bringing you my March read and wrap up, and Marvelathon really pulled through on helping me get out of my slump because I read a total of 21 books. Who am I? I'm back. So I did DNF 1, but I completed 21. Across those 21 and DNF, I read 6,215 pages, which is a lot better than last few months. And I listened to 31.5 hours of audiobooks. I've definitely been doing more ebooks than audiobooks this month because work has been really quiet. And like for our whole team has been ridiculously quiet. So we've just been doing sort of like sat at our desk doing like other bits and bobs. And I've been choosing those moments to read ebooks on my phone. So I've got through quite a lot. Overall, it was a pretty good month for quality. So I had no 2 stars, 1 3 star, 12 4 stars, and then 8 5 stars. So quite a good quality month. Quite happy with that. But yeah, I will go through my DNF first. It was a fairly recent one. It was in the last week, but I DNF'd A Strange Hymn by Laura Thalassa. I'm absolutely gutted about this. Genuinely thought this was going to be like a 4 5 star. And I read 137 pages of it before DNFing it. And this is the second book in the series. The reason for DNFing is because it's just started to become too similar to another book series I love. And I don't think it's written as well. And that's like ruining my enjoyment, and I'm just not I just wasn't enjoying it, so I just DNF'd it because I was slowing down and didn't want to pick it back up. So yeah, that's DNF'd. I can take my bookmark out now. Yes, it's my Eddie Munson bookmark. But let's move on to the books I did complete. So first up we have Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. This was a 4 star. This is my least favourite in this series. So spoiler alert, and All the Feels both got 5 stars. Now, I knew it was unlikely for me to like this more than All the Feels because it's my favourite, but I thought I would like it at least as much as Spoiler Alert. But it was a little bit of miscommunication, but it wasn't the miscommunication itself that I didn't enjoy about it. It was the actual reasoning behind Maria especially. Just really annoyed me. But on a positive note, I really liked the characters up until that point, and the plus size rep in this, phenomenal. I absolutely loved that part of it, which is why it got a 4 star. Part of the reason why it got a 4 star. So yeah. Next up was The Chalet by Catherine Cooper. This is like a thrillery mystery type book, and this got a 3 star. I hated all the characters. Now, I know you're supposed to hate all the characters, but I don't think some of the characters were written well. Some were, but others weren't. And there was a lot of unnecessary things in there. And I genuinely didn't care what happened to most of them. I did like the ending. I liked the little twist. I didn't see that coming. You know that when you're reading a thriller and you have the twist. Didn't see it coming. So I thought that was really well done. But the actual characters I don't think were necessarily done well enough, and there were parts where I was like, do I want to keep reading? Like, I did nearly DNF at 2 points in the book, but luckily my intrigue was high enough that I powered through. I wouldn't say I'm glad I powered through, like it wouldn't have caused me any distress to not know how this book ended, but I did. And yeah. Next we have Rainbow Grey Eye of the Storm by Laura Ellen Anderson. This is the second Rainbow Grey book, and I really enjoyed this. This was a 4 star. This was adorable, and it made me sob at the end, which I did not see coming whatsoever. I am really happy that I finally read it, and I'm really hoping I can get to book 3 soon because I want to see how the story progresses from the end of this one. Love the characters. The characters are great. I loved how the story went, but loved is like the wrong word because of the way Ray is treated by people is horrible. But I like how the plot is progressing. that makes more sense. Next up is an ebook I read, and I actually have nicked my mum's physical copy of this so that I don't have to put the picture here, and it is Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Caine. This was a 5-star. This was incredible. I enjoyed this so much. Now, up until this point, I've only ever read the Morganville series by Rachel Caine, which is a YA supernatural. This is an adult thriller mystery, and when I tell you I was on the edge of my seat for the entirety of this book, this was incredible. It was so interesting to see the difference in Rachel Caine's writing between those two different types of books and two different age categories. And I'm in awe of how amazing a writer Rachel Caine was. But I'm definitely going to be continuing this series because the way this ended, I need book 2 so badly. Next up, we have my reread of Our Dark Duet by V.E. Schwab. I have been low-key reading these along with Schwab along. I did miss the live show for This Savage Song. I'm hoping to catch the live show for Our Dark Duet because I want to see what everyone thought of the ending of this, because I think it is such an incredibly written book. It is my favourite Schwab series. Everything about this series is perfect. It's a 5-star series for me and I absolutely adore it. I want everyone to read it because it's the best. But yeah, I love the characters. I love how the plot goes. I love the ending. I just love everything about it. Next up, I got through some of my 30 books to read the year I turned 30, and I read The Extinction Trials by S.M. Wilson. I have had this book. Let me see when this one came out. When did this come out? This came out in 2018, and I'm pretty sure I got it either the year it came out or the year after it came out. This book is incredible. This was a 4-star. It didn't quite hit the 5-star mark for me, but when it says The Hunger Games meets Jurassic Park on the front, it was not lying. So the Jurassic Park sense is there's dinosaurs. So the way it works is all these humans live on this one continent, and they're running out of resources. So they want to go over to the other continent to see if they can find space for humans to live or find resources. And they have been over there before and people die, basically, because the dinosaurs are on the other continent. And they host these trials where people go and they go over to this other continent to try and find resources and things like that. And so in a sense, it is like Hunger Games in that sense, because you can very much die on these trials. However, it is actually voluntary for you to go into these trials, and they do have rules. So whereas with the Hunger Games, it's just random names pulled out. If you're over a certain age, your name can get pulled out at random. No questions asked. You're going in unless someone's like, I volunteer as tribute. With this, you have to basically register to go on the trials, to go on the expedition, and they will weigh you and check that you're in a good enough health to take part in the trials, and then you have to take part in the trials, and then only 100 people are picked from these trials to then go on the expedition. So I really liked how the trials were done. It wasn't just oh, you're gonna go, you're gonna go, you're gonna go, you're gonna go. It was actually people knew what they was getting in for. It was all voluntary. So I enjoyed that. And then there's also the whole, the side plot, kind of a side plot, was really interesting how it was done, which involved humans against dinosaurs once again, and just showed you just what humans are like sometimes. But I really enjoyed this, and I'm really glad I've started reading it, and I'm definitely continuing this as soon as I can, because I really enjoyed this and I want to know how the whole series pans out, because I didn't see the ending going the way it did, and now I'm like, what's going to happen next? And then next up was another book from my 30 books to read the year I turned 30. Go me. And it was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Finally, I have this entire series, and I finally read the first book, and this was a 4-star. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the twist on the whole Cinderella retelling, because obviously you have the evil stepmother, and God, was she evil. Really enjoyed this. I loved the characters. I'm intrigued to see how this is going to go, because whilst one of the things I did see coming, I didn't see it ending the way it did. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the series progresses. And I have the whole series and I'm excited. This is what happens when I actually read the books that are on my shelves. I end up really enjoying them and want to continue their series. So whilst I have just started 2 new series there, I enjoyed them and I want to continue. Next up, we had The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. I got this, I believe, last year. I think it was one of the FairyLoot Adult. Yeah, it was, because FairyLoot Adult only started last year. So this was July's book, I think. It was one of the books. Anyway, that's not important. I really enjoyed this. Like, this was so well written. This was a 5-star, which I'm not actually shocked about. I really liked the world. I don't know how to describe the world, but the world was so interesting. Like, the world building was just brilliant. And I was like, the characters were great. Like, Heart and Mercy were both amazing in their own different ways. And this is such a grumpy sunshine book, but also a great enemies to lovers. And the way they go from enemies to lovers is just, there is a slight miscommunication, but I think it worked out okay, the way it was done. Like, I think it was well written, which I don't say often about the miscommunication trope. But I really enjoyed this. I'm so glad I listened to Meg, because Meg has been yelling at me to read this book. And I finally have. And I know Chloe enjoyed it as well. So I've joined the club. Next up, I read Moon Knight issue 3. I can't remember who this is by exactly, but this is from the original 1980 run of comics. This was a 4-star. There's nothing overly special about it, but I enjoy the story because it incorporates not only Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, but also Jake Lockley as well, which I really enjoy when Jake comes into play on it. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did want to get more of these issues read, but it just didn't happen. Next up, we have Festigrim by Thomas Taylor. I absolutely loved this book. This was a 4-star. This series has just been incredible. I think this is my second to last book if I was to rank all 4 so far. And whilst that seems like, oh, but you just said you loved it, I do. All of these books have been either 4 or 5-star. So it's like, even though it's like lower down on my list, I still loved it. So like, Malamander was my least favourite, even though I loved it. And then it goes this, because I just feel like this wasn't as spooky as Gargantis and Shadowghast. And I was really hoping for that, because I really like the spooky vibes, because it's literally set in a place called Erie-on-Sea. But the characters I loved how they've incorporated some old characters back into it. And I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, because that feels like it's gonna come up again. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next book in this series, because that comes out nearer the end of this year, so very excited. Next up, I read Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was a 5-star, friends. I absolutely loved this. So I finally got my act together and read this because of the Sister Along read along for this series, which I've just realised I've just missed the live show. It was on today. I'm going to have to watch that live show back. So I read the first 2 books in this series. The first book I loved. The second book I enjoyed, but I didn't love like I did the first book. So I was a bit, am I going to enjoy this? Because I've heard very mixed reviews about this third one. Some people are like, oh my God, it's my favourite. And others are like, I hated it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was a bit, what side am I going to be on? And I'm happy to report I absolutely adored this book. There were Marvel references, which I can't tell you the Marvel references. One is Captain America fanfic, I can tell you that. But if you read this, if you get to the bit where the name M'Baku is mentioned, it's my favourite reference. And I'm so happy. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Eve is great. I loved Eve. And I thought the relationship in this was just so adorable and so well written, and I loved every second of reading this. Then I read volumes 1, 2 and 3 of Vox Machina Origins. I am obsessed with Critical Role and The Legend of Vox Machina, if you didn't know. And I borrowed all 3 volumes off of Ash, and I read all 3. And these all got 5 stars. I love how we get their origin stories, because you don't get the origin stories in... well, you don't get much of the origin stories in the actual Legend of Vox Machina show. You get some of their backstories in Critical Role. But one thing in particular that happens in volume 3, I had just watched an episode, like one of the episodes of Critical Role, the day before I read it. And then I read this. Oh no, sorry, the day after I read this. So I read this, and then I was watching Critical Role and they mentioned something, and I was like, that was in this. And I got really excited. But I really enjoyed these, and I'm definitely going to be continuing them because I love these. Next up, I'm going to show you 6 books. And it is books 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 in the Darren Shan, the saga of Darren Shan. So we have The Vampire's Assistant, Tunnels of Blood, Vampire Mountain, Trials of Death, The Vampire Prince, and Hunters of the Dusk. So all of these got a 4-star. I'm rereading this series for the first time since about, I want to say 2008. It feels like I'm reading it for the first time because for some reason I took no information in when I read it when I was a teenager. So I don't, to the point something happened in one of them and I gasped like I've never read it before. But I have, but I just don't remember. So it feels like I'm reading it for the first time. But I'm really enjoying these. They've all been 4 stars. I'm absolutely loving this series so much. And I'm really excited to carry on reading. I am going to finish rereading this series because I obviously am going to be reading the Saga of Lon Crepsley, which is a prequel series to this. So I wanted to refresh my memory, which is a good job I did, because otherwise I would have been like, who the hell's Crepsley? So yeah. And then finally, finally, we have Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I haven't actually finished tabbing this because it got to the point I had to finish listening to the audiobook in work, which meant I didn't have the book with me to tab. But just from these, look how much blue there is. Blue is every time I've cried. And there is going to be a ton of blue in this because I cry a lot near the end. Luckily, I hid it in work. No one noticed, I don't think. This is obviously a 5-star. This is probably my favourite. So Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy is my absolute favourite Shadowhunter book, but I think this might be second. I think this is second. I really love it, and I know a lot of people don't. I get it. Some people don't like it because it gets a lot darker. Some people don't like it because it's a lot. A lot happens in this, and for some people it's a bit too much to be happening in one book, which again, I totally appreciate that. But for me, I loved every second of this book, even though a lot of it breaks me. I love seeing the characters. I love all the plot, and then all the little side plots as well that link to the plot. And there's also one plot in particular that opens up the plot for the next trilogy, which is the Wicked Powers trilogy, which obviously has not started to come out yet, but it will, and I'm excited for when it does. But for now, absolutely love this. I'm so excited to talk about it on the live show. But that was my March wrap up. I am not anticipating April is going to be as big. I do have a lot that I do want to get read in April, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be 21 books long. But I hope I can keep up with the rhythm that I'm flowing with reading right now, because I'm really enjoying it. But I do also want to do some other things in April too. Before I forget, my favourite book of the month was Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This got the highest on CawPoll, and I am not shocked in the slightest, because if you take away my rereads, this just shone above all the others, and I'm just so happy. So let me know in the comments what your favourite book that you read in March was, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.